Syracuse shoots a season-best 60% from the floor and easily takes a Quadrant 2 win over Boston College in the Dome. What the heck is a Quadrant 2 win? We'll give you the breakdown of the new NCAA Selection Committee criteria. All of that. Then, Joe will let us know what to look forward to as the Orange leave Syracuse to play the Panthers Saturday, January 27th at 4 o'clock. Let's go.
Make some noise, Orange fans. It's time for the Cuse Nation Podcast with Sean and Joe. Give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/Cuse Nation Podcast.
All right, what's up, Cuse Nation? Thanks for tuning in to episode 53 of the Cuse Nation Podcast with Sean and Joe. We can be found on any major platform or directory, including Podcast Addict app, Player FM app, pretty much everywhere. So we really appreciate everybody tuning in. We appreciate everybody on the Facebook page, everybody that's going to CuseNationShow.com. We can't thank you enough. If you could, would be great if you could subscribe to the whatever platform you listen on and give us a rating on iTunes. We'd very much appreciate that. Enough can't be said, so thanks in advance for that. Once again, I'm Sean alongside my good buddy Joe. So I was actually a little worried about this game, and they started off slow, but they didn't start off slow on offense like they normally do. They started off a little bit slow on defense, which is it's a little abnormal, but they ended up pulling it out. And a season best, I mentioned, from the field, 60%. Previous high was against Colgate. All the way, it was 52.1. So that's huge. They did a tremendous job from the floor. It was the first time that they had 5 players score double digits since
forever.
In November, Texas Southern. A couple things that I saw. I think this was from Brent X. Wednesday night's matchup was the 72nd time that we've met Boston College. And we hold the record at 47-25, and we've won the 6 out of the last 7 games. And another quick note, too, is that Joe Lenardi was watching this game because he thinks they're playing for a spot in his latest bracket ratings. So we got that win, so there's that. 47 points was the most the Orange has ever mustered up any first half all season. They outscored BC 30-14 in the paint, and outscored them 17-6 off of turnovers, that was my favorite one. The 17-6 off of turnovers, that was awesome. What'd they have? 17 turnovers to our 11?
Yep.
And Howard did a fantastic job. 0 turnovers. We talked about Howard last week against Pitt. He had 1 turnover. Well, he had 0 today. 0.
Yeah.
Grading the Orange, Joe. Break it down real quick. What'd you see? What grade are you going to give him?
Oh, that was just probably the most complete game. I mean, like you said, other than the defense in the beginning, we usually are the ones that give the other team fits until they figure it out. But it was the other way around. But we made some adjustments pretty quick. And, as far as offense goes, definitely our best offensive game this year, especially in ACC. Not a lot of turnovers, and we were just making shots. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be tough to beat us if we can play like that. Little upsetting about the Moyer injury. He only got 5 minutes, and who knows how bad it's going to be. I know he was in an air cast or a walking boot, but that's usually just precautionary. Overall, I got a grade him out as an A. Really, I'm not going to give them an A+ because they weren't perfect, but I mean they were. Again, I mean that was the best game they played, and I was worried just like you were. And you read about the Joe Lenardi thing. I was also, doing last podcast, kind of talked about how I thought that we were going to be similar teams down the end that could be 2 possible bubble teams, and that these games, one-on-one, that they matter. Because that could be the difference when it comes down to the conference. Just basically we could be so close in a resume that it should, who beat who when they played. So that's why it was a big win. And again, it pushes us towards Pittsburgh. But I'd say an A, man. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I gave him an A as well. Mostly because of the offense, like you said. Obviously, they did a couple things really great. They even shot 43.7% behind the arc. I mean, It's unheard of. I would like to see him get to the line more. I would like to see him grab some more offensive rebounds. Only 8. But as I mentioned with you earlier, Joe, it seemed like everything was falling, so the opportunity for offensive rebounds was obviously diminished a little bit, at least, because they shot so well. Just a really good game. I mean, it's going to be tough. It's really hard, especially in conference play, to pull out a absolute, perfect A+ game. Being that they went, Boston College, that is, went 4 for 4 right off the bat for threes. Kai Bowman and Robinson. What the heck's his name there?
Yeah, Jerome Robinson.
Yeah, I think they combined for.
Well, and Chapman.
Yeah, but Kai Bowman and Robinson, they combined for 41 points.
Yeah.
Bowman was 6 for 13, and it's tough to stop two guys. They were really comparable on the stat sheet, and it's hard enough to stop one guy with this defense sometimes. So to have two guys scoring like that is tough. But that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, once we started making the adjustments and getting out and kind of manning up to not give them as good as shots. Chapman was a big part of the three. Robinson had 21 points, but he was only 1 of 2 from the 3-point line. So he did his damage underneath and taking some mid-range jumpers after Chapman got in some foul trouble, and we started making our adjustments and weren't just allowing them to take wide open threes. So, but Chapman went 4 for 7 from the 3-point line, and he only had 12 points, so that was those 4 shots. But we got him in foul trouble, and he eventually actually fouled out as soon as he got back in the game after he was sitting for 4 fouls. So that was kind of funny. That's kind of their big three, those 3 guards. It's kind of similar to the way that offensively for us with our big 3. So, but just last night we got help, and our big 3 beat their big 3 with the guy being in foul trouble. But they did still shoot 47.8% from the 3-point line. But Kai Bowman was making some deep ones, and
yeah, he was. And who shot the one at the end of the first half?
Kai Bowman.
Okay, that was the 3/4.
That was real deep.
that was deep. I thought it was close too, but I wasn't as close when you looked at the replay. A competitive first half. Really, the Orange shot, we mentioned 60% for the game. They actually shot 64.3% in the first half.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, 47 points was the most they've mustered up all season in the first half. But Boston College was not equally as competitive there. We did go into the locker room with a 10-point lead, but they did shoot 48% and 46.7% of their threes.
Yeah.
So
they just had nothing down low, and other than Robinson, it was very difficult for them to just really make anything inside the 3-point arc. So
you gave him an A. I gave him an A. Joe, who's your player of the game?
You could go by stats, but if you went by stats, you could give the player of the game to the best player every single time.
Right.
In this case,
too easy.
In this case, it would be too easy to give it to Ty's battle because he was very efficient and he shot. He had leading scorer, had the most points. But in a game like this, he could have missed a couple. We still would have been fine. Howard could have had a couple turnovers. We would have been fine. I would probably give it to Merrick. Considering expectations. Not that I steal yours.
Yeah, you did.
Sorry,
it's okay. Go ahead.
No, it's just it would be too easy to give it to Battle. Very efficient, 9 of 14, 24 points. But Dolce coming in and playing the defense that he played. He got his hands on some balls, some tip passes. 12 points, going 4 for 4 from the field with 2 assists, 8 rebounds.
4 for 4 from the line.
Yeah, he led the team in rebounding. So and to come in, and the thing is too with him is he's had, good games earlier in the season that could, wouldn't make this so surprising. But lately he hasn't been playing that well, and Moyer's been getting a majority of the minutes. So for him to just step up like that after, more than 5 minutes into the game, Moyer goes down and he's not coming back. I think that was impressive, and I didn't see it coming. And honestly, it could have been the difference in the game. I mean, all the guys.
0 turnovers. I mean, played 35 out of 40 minutes, 0 turnovers. I think he had 1 foul. And you know when Merrick gets a foul, if he thinks it's legit, I love how he
yeah,
he fesses up to him.
Yeah, I think he had 3 fouls, but a couple
did he?
of
I'm
them
sorry.
were.
Okay.
Yeah. There was that one little run that BC had there a little bit late, and I think Merrick fouled on purpose, not only to stop a 3-on-2, but also it was under the 8-minute TV timeout there, and so he knew if he fouled, then it looked like they were getting a little tired, with those guys putting up those minutes. So kind of looked like he hacked the guy to stop a little fast break and to get a TV timeout. So, but yeah, I mean, he had a great game. Great game. He
was my player of the game too as well. So I'll just piggyback that. A career high 12 points. He had a combined 8 points in the ACC prior to the 12-point game last night against Boston College. Coach said he's been really working on his shooting. It's hard to improve your shooting in 1 year. He was talking about how he's actually done that and how his free throws he has perfect form. He's actually 10 for 10 in free throws in the last 7 games. So he doesn't get to the line much, but he has been 10 for 10. And when you give him space, as Coach mentioned, he's good. He turned around, he hit a 15-foot jumper,
Yep.
So, awesome. I also thought Chukwu, he played one of his best games, I think,
Play
as
of the
well.
game.
Yeah, he had everybody got up out off their seat in the dome when he threw that dunk down on that little pass there. And that was fantastic. But, he scored 14 points, 6 for 7 shooting. He grabbed 7 rebounds. He played all 40 minutes. And he gave it his all. And this is what we talked about coming into this game, coming off the Pitt game, criticizing him a little bit. And as Coach said, he said he thinks Sidibe's starting to feel a little better. But Chukwu was so solid last night that they didn't want to take him out of the game.
Yep.
So they just left him in there, which is fine. Let Sidibe rest. If everything's going good, unless he absolutely needs a rest, he's playing like that. I'm there. Leave him in. Leave him in.
No, Boeheim's always been on that, like we've talked about before, just with all the timeouts you have and the stoppage of play and the TV timeouts and just how young the kids are and how conditioned they are. He doesn't think it's a big deal. So when everyone talks about, they go this deep, they go this deep, they go this many players deep, like, he's going to play the best guys, and if they can play and they're not tired, then he's not going to take them out. That's just what it is, So,
any final thoughts on the Boston College game?
No, overall, I mean, good win, and I think it definitely starts to put a little bit of a positive spin on this after losing a couple in a row there, and after that Florida State game and the heartbreaker against Notre Dame. Stuff started to look like, the fans were coming out, the boo birds, the negative people, and get 2 wins like this and get some confidence up. I mean, we actually looked like a formidable offensive team last night. So
yeah, hopefully they can keep it up. So
yep.
All right, that's all we got to say about that. The NCAA has new criteria for judging who's getting in the tournament come March. It's broken down into 4 quadrants, and the 4 quadrants are broken down into 3 sections each, and they're all basically broke down home, neutral, and away, giving more emphasis on neutral games and obviously more emphasis than that on away games, and it's all broken down in these quadrants by the RPI. So, as right now, we are, last night, I said it was a quadrant 2 win. That could change at any point. Depending on Boston College's RPI. So when you get a win like that, you hope, Buffalo. Buffalo is we're 1-3 in quadrant 1. And Buffalo is our 1 win in quadrant 1. If their RPI falls out of that demographic, that was a home game, So that's 1 to 30 RPI. If they fall out of that, that goes away and becomes a quadrant 2 win, most likely.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to break this down real quick for you, Joe, and then you tell me what you think. I know it's early for this, but this is going to make it a little bit more exciting, I think, for SU fans, because I feel like we're kind of a bubble team. This is a more transparent way of looking at the NCAA's thinking and how we can, actually see what they're actually looking at now and having it right in front of you. So, and it's easy to compare your team versus another team, too. Quadrant 1, home RPIs is 1 through 30. Neutral is 1 through 50. Away is 1 through 75. Quadrant 2, home is RPIs 31 through 75. Neutral is 51 through 100. Away is 76 through 135, and so on and so on. You can see the breakdown at CuseNationShow.com or just Google it. It's on Syracuse.com. I kind of just blogged off of their page. Joe, how do you feel about this?
No, I mean, I like it. Coaches have been forever, looking for some type of criteria or some type of process or something transparent that they can go off of so that they can compare their teams or so that they know what they have to do. And I think right now, this right here, I mean, this year with this starting, it's I think it's going to change the way the bubble teams get looked at, and then hopefully change the teams that actually get invited to this tournament, and then that can show some transparency as to whether or not, as far as what teams need to do to get in. And a lot of this comes down to mid-major teams, teams like
Buffalo.
Buffalo, Boise State, out west, some Mountain West teams, Wyoming, Nevada. There's some good teams out there that sometimes get snubbed if they happen to not win their conference tournament. And this type of thing right here, pretty much, I mean, it's breaking down and it's giving you points and it's showing you, how good of a game as far as win or loss it's going to be. Is it a bad loss? Is it a bad or a good win? And it's really easy to, like you said, break it down. You can go through the RPIs of the teams that you played and you can, look at the result and see where they played, and you can actually break down the records of each quadrant. And like we were looking at it before, quadrant 3 and 4, we're undefeated. So right now
we don't have bad wins.
We don't have a bad loss.
Right.
Yeah. So it's easy to break that stuff down. So when you can compare it, I don't know if you plan on possibly wanting to post this at the Facebook page or whatever, but in one of the articles I read, they had a little team sheet description. It's actually a setup with a key and everything of how teams are going to get looked at. And it's basically their resume, and it's just a technical way to look at it. And this is going really in deep sports nerd stuff, so I'm not going to touch that. But
it is. It's confusing to look at until you realize what you're looking at.
Exactly, and I think it's going to take going through and actually getting down to March and seeing the way that some of these so-called experts on the TV look at it.
Exactly.
But,
the thing is that's great about it, Joe, is you don't need to be a freaking expert anymore. You don't have to be an expert anymore. The only thing that's fishy about it, and it's not even fishy, is that it's mainly going off of RPI. Now RPI isn't a perfect formula, but it does the best it can, I think, basically it ranking teams by their wins and losses and strength of schedule. There's no real scientific formula for it. If there was, I think we'd have it by now. So RPI isn't a pure formula, but taking that into consideration, I think it's pretty fair. If anybody can screw it up, though, it's the NCAA. But this will let you see exactly what they're seeing. And you can tell where you need to be at. I think it's a level playing field for everybody, which is important. You feel sometimes like you get, snubbed. What was it, Monmouth in that NCAA article?
Yep.
They were out in 2016. If you look at this breakdown, they would have actually been in. Yeah. So you've got to wonder how many teams, fell into that category where they actually didn't make it, but should have if they would have used this new criteria. It's interesting.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not going to go crazy and keep track of like other teams and looking when we get closer and stuff like that. Joe Lunardi's still going to do his bracketology, and I haven't heard too much talk actually by the experts on TV yet talking about the quadrant stuff. And So it's kind of, I'm just going to go along. I'm going to keep track of Syracuse, and I'm sure Syracuse.com and some other writers for the team are going to, write some stories like they did a week ago or a couple of days ago or whatever. But yeah, I mean, just keep a track of it. And, the whole thing with the NCAA with this now is they can't drop the ball because
no, they can't because
because what happened, like you said, just are they going to come out and say, well, this is just one part of it? And why are you doing this? If you're going to do this and make this whole thing, then, you better go by it. So
I give them credit is probably the only time I've given them credit. For doing this,
yes. But at the same time, if this ends up coming out to where this really doesn't mean anything and the same teams are getting snubbed, and
then we'll have a problem. Then we'll have something to say about it.
So right. So now, I mean, putting this into place is, putting the NCAA. I mean, now it's going to be people are going to be going by this. There's going to be teams that are going to be going by this, mid-major teams and other people looking at this. And at the end of the day, like you said, it's not a perfect RPI is not perfect. The system's not perfect. It's never going to be. And no matter what, there's always going to be people thinking that they got snubbed or complaining. It doesn't matter if you have 32 teams in a tournament, 64, 68, as far as, NCAA football, if they want to expand it to 8, it doesn't matter because then, the next team out is always going to complain about it. So,
you can use this formula for football. That's the beauty of it, and they might want to look into that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, one more thing. What was I going to say? Oh, there is real-time RPI. So you can Google your team's RPI or whatever, or any team's RPI. They'll show you real time. So up to the minute, So after the game is played, you can look at someone's RPI almost instantly. So. You Google the RPI. If you've got a quadrant breakdown, you can just look and see where we're at right now. Like Joe said, we're undefeated in 3 and 4, quadrant 3 and 4. So we have 0 bad losses now. Maybe a quadrant 2 loss down the road could become a bad loss, but we'll have to just wait and see. The thing about it
that's what's interesting is it's always moving.
Right. Exactly.
So,
exactly.
It's not what it is today. It might not be tomorrow. So, you can keep track of it. You can try to follow it. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to just once we get to the conference tournaments, it's going to probably be talked about a little bit more. And that's when there's a little bit less movement because there's less games and people start getting eliminated. It's going to be interesting to see.
It will be interesting to see. But as with the lifetime RPI, I will bet you that it's only a matter of time before someone comes out with, a lifetime, your team's where your team ranks in the quadrant. You won't even have to figure it out. You just go to a website and look.
I'm sure.
It's only a matter of time before that happens. So,
right.
All right, there's your quadrant breakdown. I love it. I think it's great. We're going to see how it works out this year, and it's going to be exciting for Syracuse fans. And that's all we got to say about that. All right, Joe. Heading to Pitt this Saturday. Worst team in the ACC. Narrowly won. Lost a game against the Wolfpack.
NC State, right?
Yeah. So they were almost in there, but they weren't quite. So this team's hungry. That's dangerous, especially at home. 4:00 on a Saturday. I mean, it could be loud in there. It's designed to be loud. That arena.
It's the zoo.
It's the zoo. So Peterson Events Center.
Or that.
So Joe, what do we got to do? What do we got to do coming off this big win? Not a big win, but a healthy, solid win against Boston College going into the zoo. What do they got to do?
I think they just got to stay right where they're at. Just don't get too full of yourself. Don't get too overconfident. But, I mean, the fact that it's away and what we've done away so far is in conference last year, this year, it's been difficult. And there's a reason why, like we just talked about, they put different weight on road games and home games when we talk about the quadrants and NCAA and stuff. It's just, and you see it in the betting lines too. So, I mean, we were a 17-point favorite, I think, against Pittsburgh the first time. And I don't know exactly what the line is now, but I'd be willing to bet that it's not 17. So I just don't see a team that can beat us if we. I mean, you remember back, what was it, a couple Tuesdays ago when we played Pittsburgh and we talked about how ugly the game was and it was hard to watch and we won by 15.
Right. True.
So
we expected more, I think, out of that game.
I think we did, but I think you saw early with him bringing in Sidibe early, bringing Howard Washington early. He wasn't afraid to mess around with get some people some minutes and try to prove some points, get some learning points in there early. But it's just I just can't see us losing this game. It's like almost like the same. I mean, I was worried about it, and the only reason I was worried about it is because if we lose, it's just looked at as a bad loss. I was looking at it earlier today. I was looking at Ken Pomeroy, see where we've been in the 40s all year. We're up to 43 right now. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh, last time when we played them, they were 202. Now they're 211. So they're just falling back, and I truly do believe that they are probably one of the probably the worst team out of all the big conferences. And it would just look bad, I think, if anybody lost to them in conference at this point.
Yeah,
so.
they realtimerpi.com has them rated at a 171, and that would be a quadrant 3 loss.
Right, and the only reason that's a quadrant 3 loss is because we're playing them there. It'd be a quadrant 4 if it was home. So that's why I was so worried about the home game.
Exactly. Yep. And and for them, it would be a quadrant 1 win. Or wait.
Yeah.
Would it?
Well, quadrant
yes, it would.
At Syracuse, it would have been.
Yeah.
But
so
I don't know. It'd probably be 2 at this point.
This is our new language. We have to talk in quadrants. I wish they would have called them something else.
Where do they have our RPI, by the way?
Let's see. This is 38.
38. Yeah. Yep. So I mean, if you look at what they say with the quadrants, what a home 31 through 75. So it'd be quadrant 2 if they win. But I mean, I don't think Pittsburgh's got to worry about quadrants. Pittsburgh's got to worry about a lot more than quadrants.
Yeah, no kidding. So that's how we're going to talk now, though, because and it sounds confusing at first, but we're going to nail it down. I think every episode we need to know, at least in the moment, coming off a game, going into a game, what we're looking at as far as what the NCAA is gonna
well, I mean, they painted a picture as far as most important, and at least so you can look at the game before the game. And I mean, granted, like we said, RPIs change, but we can only live in the present. So just going in and looking at, like we're talking about the preview of Pittsburgh, we're going to do this every week. We're going to look at the team. We're going to see where they're at and where we're playing them, and that's going to give us a quadrant and tell us how important that game is. And if that's a quadrant 3 or 4, then that's a must win in my opinion. So
it's a must win. We don't want any bad losses because I think we're going to have good losses, so to speak.
Yeah, well,
no loss is a good loss, but
losses that don't hurt us.
Right, exactly. And playing Duke in Cameron Indoor, for instance, we'll get there. Yeah. We'll talk about that when we get there, but
that's going to be a quadrant 1.
Exactly. So, Joe, real quick, do you want to give a flyby version of the new recruit, the transfer from Oklahoma for football, and what's going on there?
Oh, yeah. No. It's just exciting last couple of weeks with some recruiting news. We do know National Signing Day is, I believe it's like February 6th, or it's the first week of February, so it's coming up here. And we still got some spots to fill, so we're getting down to the nitty gritty. And there's a lot of guys that we're looking at, but we recently, the past couple of weeks, got a couple transfers, and it's got me kind of excited because they're not just transfers that didn't play. They're just transfers that they went to, good recruits, went to good schools, and they're just not getting the playing time or the recognition they feel that they deserve. And they realize and see an opportunity in Syracuse. Whether people do want to believe it or not, Dino Babers is looked at by his peers as a good coach. People do respect him, and everybody that respects him and his peers, they think that Syracuse is on the uprise. And the players know that too. That's like something internally that, coaches talk to high school coaches, talk to kids and everything. And the bottom line is that now Syracuse right now is a destination for playmakers because we lack them. And they've seen what some people can do with the past couple of years with Amba Atatao and Steve Ishmael and Irv Phillips. And like I said, these past 2 weeks, we've gotten 2 former 4-star athletes that have transferred from big-time schools. First one, Tristan Jackson, he transferred from Michigan State, started the first 4 games this year, and he ended up losing some playing time to some other guys, big schools, big competition. But he was a sophomore, so he's got to sit out a year, and he'll, not going to be able to play this year, but albeit he's just 4-star receiver. And also 4-star running back Abdul Adams is transferring from Oklahoma, and he also was a sophomore, and he had gotten some burn this year, but there was just some talk about he didn't get recruited by the new running back coach, so it wasn't his guy, and it was a newer guy, and he just felt like he wasn't getting the same type of opportunities, so he just felt like he wanted to move on somewhere where he could show his show his talents. He was the number 15 running back 2 years ago. So 2 former 4-star recruits that have to sit out this year. But once Dungy graduates and DeVito takes over the reins 2 years from now, he's going to have a good receiver and a real good running back that's going to be joining him. So I'm excited about it. But I know, like I said, it's 2 years away from now, but it's just, it's proof of what Babers is doing, building depth, and there's playmakers that want to come here. So
just got to be patient. I think we talked about a number of during the football season, how long it takes to really actually rebuild, some of these teams. We use Duke as an example from off the top of my head. I can remember 6 years for them to be competitive. I hope people don't start calling for his head if, we have another down year, we don't make it to a bowl game, because the year after that's really when you're going to start seeing, you're going to start reaping the rewards for the work that he's actually put in. So I think it's important to be patient,
Well, it
sucks.
Definitely is.
It sucks because we've been patient since, 98?
Well, the problem is that, honestly, a lot of the Syracuse fans haven't been that patient because it does take time. If you look at the coaches that we've had, I wasn't a big fan of Greg Robinson. Doug Marrone, I was a big fan of, but he took an NFL job. And Scott Schaefer, I felt they kind of cut him loose a little early. But,
yeah, they definitely did.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen him get some more opportunities, but not to say that they didn't make a good choice after that. I just thought that he didn't really get a fair share. I think a coach should be able to get 4 to 5 years just because of the turnaround and the turnover and the change of systems. And the fact of the matter is that football is a system game. There's some players that can play in certain systems that just cannot flourish in other ones, and that's just the truth of the matter. If you talk to anybody in the NFL that knows anything about anything or just anything about football, that's depending on what the scheme, the coaches, what they play, what they run, it depends on what type of person is playing on that team. So there's always a turnover. There's always players that transfer, and it takes time for, they get a recruiting class, but they're freshmen. Then you got to wait another year. There's a lot of times when players takes 2, 3, 4 years, a red shirt in 3 years before, they figure it out. And you don't get the best recruits when you're starting off as low as Syracuse was, so it takes time, and he's shown solid improvement every single year. I can see it with the players that we're getting. There hasn't been this much talk about 4 stars and Syracuse recruiting in I can't remember. There might not even been a time. So, like you said,
exciting.
I'm excited. but I also understand that. I mean, I'm excited about a year's like a season that's 2-3 years away. You know what I mean? So
right.
And there's too many people that just want the instant gratification, but they don't see the work that's getting put in to build that depth to be better. So.
Yep. Exactly. All right. Well, a little football news at the end of the episode 53. Anything else, Joe? Any final thoughts?
Nah, man. Just had to add it because football is my sport, and it got me excited about it. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, if you can, go to facebook.com/Cuse Nation Podcast. Thumb us up there. We appreciate it. Spread the word with your friends. We appreciate that even more. I guess that's it. Episode 53 in the books. We'll come back as soon as possible after the Pitt game on Saturday.
Whoop up on those boys.
And we'll do the Georgia. Yeah, let's hopefully do that away from home. And we'll come back after that game to preview Georgia Tech. So at Georgia Tech, which will be another tough game. So
yes.
For Joe, I'm Sean. We're out.
Beat Pitt.
You just heard the Cuse Nation podcast with Sean and Joe.